On the conformity of the magician, de conformitate magi. See to it therefore, O my son, that thou in thy working dost no violence to the whole will of the all, or to the will common to all those beings or bycomings that are of one general nature with thee, or to thine own particular will. For first of all, thou art necessarily moved toward the one end from thine own station. But secondly, thou art moved toward the end proper to thine own race and caste and family, as by virtue of thy birth. And these are, I may say it, conditions or limits of thine own individual will. Thou dost laugh? Err not, my son. The magus, even as the poet, is the expression of the true will of his fellows, and his success is his proof, as it is written in the book of the law. For his work is to free men from the fetters of a false or a superannuated will, revealing unto them, in measure attuned to their needs, their true natures.
De Poetis. For this reason is the poet called an incarnation of the zeitgeist, that is, of the spirit or will of his period. So every poet is also a prophet, because when that which he saith is recognized as the expression of their own thought by men, they translate this into act, so that, in the parlance of the folk vulgar and ignorant, that which he foretold is come to pass. Now then, the poet is interpreter of the hieroglyphs of the hidden will of man in many a matter, some light, some deep, as it may be given unto him to do. Moreover, it is not altogether in the word of any poem, but in the quintessential flavor of the poet, that thou mayest seek this prophecy. And this is an art most necessary to every statesman. But who Shelley foretold the fall of Christianity, and the organization of labor, and the freedom of women, who by Nietzsche declared the principle of the root of the world war. See thou clearly that in these men were the keys of the dark gates of the future. Should not the kings and their ministers have taken heed thereto, fulfilling their word without conflict?
On the Magi of the AA in whom the word takes flesh. De magis ordinis AA quibus caro fit verbo. Now, O my son, the incarnation of the poet is particular and not universal. He saith indeed true things, but not the things of all truth. And that these may be said, it is necessary that the one take human flesh, and become a magus in our holy order. He then is called Logos, or Logos Aeonis, that is to say, the word of the aeon, or age, because he is verily that word. And thus may he be known, because he hath it given unto him to prepare the quintessence of the will of God, that is of man, in its fullness and wounds, comprehending all planes, so that his law is simple and radical, penetrating all space from its single light. For though his words be many, yet is his word one and alone. And by this word he created man anew, in an essential form of light, so that he is changed in his inmost knowledge of himself. And this change worketh outwards, little by little, unto its visible effect.
On the Magi of old, first Lao Tzu, de magis tempori antiqui imprimis, de Lao Tzu. It may be unto thy profit, O my son, if I relate unto thee the secret history of those who have gone before me in this grade of magus, so far as their memory hath remained among mankind. For what would it avail thee, should I recount the deeds of those whom I indeed may know? But thou not? Thou knowest well how I keep me from all taint of fable, or any word unproven and undemonstrable. First then I speak of Lao Tzu, whose word was the Tao. Hereof have I already written much unto thee, because his doctrine has been lost or misinterpreted, and it is most needful to restore it. For this Tao is the true nature of things, being itself a way or going, that is, a kinetic, and not a static conception. Also he taught this way of harmony and will, which I myself have thought to show thee in this little book. So then this Tao is truth, and the way of truth, and therefore Lao Tzu, logos of his aeon, and his true word, or name, was Tao.
On GAUTAMA, de GAUTAMA, whom men call GAUTAMA or Siddhartha, or the Buddha, was a magus of our holy order, and his word was anatta, For the root of his whole doctrine was that there is no Atman or soul, as men ill translate it, meaning a substance incapable of change. Thus, he, like Lao Tzu, based all upon a movement instead of a fixed point, and his way of truth was analysis made possible by great intention of the mind toward itself, and that well fortified by a certain tempered rigor of life. And he most thoroughly explored and mapped the fastness of the mind, and gave the keys of its fortress into the hands of men. But of all this, the quintessence is in one word, anatta, because this is not only the foundation of the result of his whole doctrine, but the way of its work.